Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now this is the new GT 730. That's right, ASUS have resurrected this 6-year-old card, and due to the current shortages and price inflation of any and all hardware right now, I paid about £90 for it. That's nearly double what some 750 Ti's were selling for here in the UK a couple of years ago. The whole situation is unfortunate, and even at this price it's one of the cheapest new graphics cards you can buy. There were talks of this card hitting the market back in August, and I made a brief video about it back then, though in that one I tested a DDR3 version of the 730, which you would assume would perform a lot worse, right? Well, more on that a little later on. As a Kepler card, Game Ready driver updates ended for it back in September, therefore I was only able to buy this 730 after it was already unsupported, though it will of course receive security updates until 2024 like the rest of the lineup. All in all, I paid nearly £100 for a product that's sort of end of life out of the box. What a great way to start the new year. But what's new? Like ASUS's new GT 710 we looked at a while back, this has 4 HDMI ports, which makes it ideal for a multi-display office setup. To be honest, this isn't a gaming card, so end of Game Ready driver support doesn't really matter that much, at least not to the majority of users that will probably end up with one of these. But in the current market, some gamers on a super tight budget might look at the 730 and think, maybe I should buy one, and that's why we'll be testing out its gaming performance today. As a PCIe X1 card, this can be used in a standard PCIe X16 slot or the aforementioned X1 slot, though it will of course perform the same either way. This earns it a couple more points in the accessibility category because some machines, notably older or smaller ones, might not have the usual X16 slot, so fear not because this can still be used. Aside from these changes, this is still a standard 730, albeit a 2GB GDDR5 model. Now I'm assuming that its bus interface is what makes it a worse performer than the DDR3 card in some scenarios, with Cyberpunk, Red Dead and Fortnite all running worse on this card than they do with the HP DDR3 730 we tested months ago. It's not all bad though, or terrible I should say. This is however very much a 720p card if you want to use it for gaming. 4 HDMI ports will mean that 4K output is doable, and using 4 monitors to display multiple Ultra HD spreadsheets will look glorious, but that's really where the benefits of a card like this end. If you want to play Counter-Strike Global Offensive though, you can do at 1280x720 with almost 60 FPS on average. The frame times leave a little to be desired, but for the most part the experience is okay. As expected, GTA 5 will also play smoothly, and it's more enjoyable than CSGO because it doesn't stutter nearly as much. The game is still set to 720p with the normal settings here, but FXAA is on because it just cleans up the jagged edges with no real performance expense. MSAA is firmly off though because it will probably melt this thing. That may be a bit dramatic, but the frame rates will certainly suffer. Fortnite in performance mode will also be playable. I also had the available options turned down to their lowest, but resolution scaling was at 100%, so we are running at full 720p for what that's worth. 75 FPS was the average across 3 games, with the 1.1% lows indicating some slowdown and frame dips. For the most part it's okay, and as I've said before, I tend to get these issues with a lot of hardware anyway. I still couldn't justify the cost of this card for the performance you get out of it, if you know what I mean. Red Dead Redemption is a bit of a fail, even at 720p low. TAA was enabled because it didn't really change the performance when I disabled it, but it does smooth out the jagged edges quite significantly when turned on. We could drop the resolution scaling, I guess, but the extra 5 or so FPS we'd gain wouldn't make up for the loss of visual quality. This wasn't playable in any sense of the word. Red Dead was however more playable than Cyberpunk 2077, which is just laughable. It ran okay with the HP DDR3 730, which I think ran in PCI Express X8 mode, but here it's not even worth analysing. It just chugs along at less than 10 frames per second all of the time. Let's move on to end all of our suffering. Or prolong it, perhaps. The Witcher 3 continues to look good as we enter 2022. Happy New Year, by the way, and even on low, it is relatively pleasant to look at. The 25 or so FPS that we saw most of the time wasn't as pleasant, but it's sort of what I expected at this point. The game will actually hit 30 FPS outside of busier areas, but entering Novigrad or so much as walking around the outside of it will mean a sub 30 FPS experience the rest of the time. It's not unplayable if you're desperate, but for most people it's likely not going to be all that enjoyable, unfortunately. Finally, it's GTA San Andreas, the definitive edition. Now this is perhaps a controversial one, but hear me out. Like Cyberpunk, I intend to follow the progress of this game as it receives more updates. It seems to be running a lot better than it did at launch anyway, already, but I'll have a video looking into this later down the line. Here with the 730 it does an okay job at 720p low, with TAA Plus enabled once again to eliminate any horrible jagged edges. Now I personally enjoy this game, probably because I'm a massive GTA fanboy who's been into the series for over a decade, so for me it's nice to see that it's getting some improvements here and there, and it's nice to see that the GT 730 can actually run it. Overall, this new card is best used in a basic home or office system. If you want to wow your productive friends with some clean and crisp PowerPoint presentations across multiple monitors, well, this might be for you. Though the 710 will do just as good of a job. The new one with 4 HDMI ports, that is, of course. And it can be found for less. For gamers, this is probably a no-go, unless the likes of Fortnite, CSGO and GTA 5 at 720p are all you want to play. Shall we introduce a scoring system this year? What do you think? I'll give this a solid 3 potatoes out of 10. But what do you think? Do you think this is worth the price? I can already tell what you're going to say. Let me know down below in the comments. And with all that said, Happy New Year to all of you. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this one, leave a like on it down below. Leave a dislike if you didn't. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And in the next one, we'll be talking about that new RTX 2060, the 12GB one, because one of my friends has purchased one and is hugely disappointed with it, but I'll have more on that in the next video because, yeah, it seems like a bit of a pointless card for gamers, and we'll be discussing that later on. So thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you all again next time.